Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Williamson. Probably knew that. At Williamson NFL. Probably knew that. Give me a follow. Give me a shout out. I hope all is well. It is hot out there, and we are in the dog days of the downtime. So, as usual, it's kind of a two-part podcast today with a little ad read in between and from our friends. But one's bad, one's good. Let's start with the good. Keep you in a good mood here right off the bat. Okay. I know EPA can be a little confusing, but when you break it down, what it does is it breaks down how many points end up on the scoreboard per play. I mean, to the lowest common denominator. And these numbers won't seem like a lot to you, and they're averages. So over the last 3 years, they've come up with this average. If there's no pressure by a defensive pass rush or no sack, got it? Clean pocket. On average, the offense scores 0.19 points. And these aren't made up points. These are points on the NFL scoreboard at AccuSure Stadium per drop back. So if you drop back with no pressure, no sacks, clean pocket, that on average over the last 3 years produces 0.19 points on the scoreboard. That's good, right? Of course. If there's a pressure and no sack, that goes to minus 1.2 points. Again, this is per play. So I know that doesn't sound like a big difference, but that's a huge difference. When you run 60 or 70 plays, or better yet, 40 dropbacks, well, if all 40 of those can be no pressure, no sack, times 0.19, that's a lot of points. If all of those are pressure but no sack, and you go backwards 0.12 per, that's bad. Well, how about a pressure and a sack? Minus 1.66. That just shows the massive importance of pressuring the quarterback and especially sacking the quarterback. Pretty much wherever you get the ball on the field, if the quarterback is sacked, well, it's going to put you in the next down and distance are going to be way worse. The ball may have squirted out. Who knows? Your quarterback could have got injured. So it just shows the massive importance of pressures and sacks. Now, I want to focus on this, though, from a Steeler offensive perspective. You guys know from a Steeler defensive perspective, my big-time goal is get back to leading the league in sacks. Don't be middle of the road with this front. The pressures were good, which is 0.12, but the sack of minus 1.66, which is so much more, has such a drastic effect. But I wanted to focus on the Steelers now with Rodgers. Okay. Sacks allowed per game last year. The Steelers allowed 2.9 sacks per game over the course of the year. Really bad. And over their last 3 games, they were at 4.3 sacks allowed per game. But over the course of the year, that 2.9 allowed was only better than the Patriots, who had like the worst line I've ever seen, the Titans, who had a horrific offensive line and had to pay Dan Moore a ton, Seattle also used a first-round pick on an offensive lineman, Minnesota, who also used a first-round pick on an offensive lineman, Houston, who had a horrific offensive line, and 2 extremely dysfunctional offenses in the Browns and Bears. Now, as I've told you many times, I blame the quarterbacks much more than the protection in this instance, because Wilson and Fields take sacks. If you're new to the program, you haven't heard me recite this, but I bring it up all the time. The Steelers' average time to allow a pressure, how late it was in the down that a, quote, pressure was allowed, and this is pretty much true for their sacks allowed too, was better than every team but the Chiefs and the Ravens, who have like the hardest quarterbacks in the world to sack. So when they were allowing pressures on the quarterback, it was very late in the down, which implies the line's doing their job and the quarterbacks aren't. And Wilson and Fields' history reflect this since they've been in the league. This is going to get better, folks. I just told you per play how much difference that matters. Now, the Jets were middle of the road. They were 16th. They allowed 2.4 sacks per game allowed. So even if the Steelers could go from 25th to 16th, that's a ton of EPA and points on the scoreboard that directly reflect in sacks allowed. Just getting better in that. Now, if you watch the Jets tape, and I urge you to, I do a weekly podcast with Chris. He's been breaking down Rodgers with the Jets last year, and he's 100% right that their line, I don't know who their line coach is, but they couldn't pick up stunts. They blew protections repeatedly, and it wasn't on Rodgers. You could see Rodgers pointing at guys like, why didn't you block the unblocked defender? And in turn, they were another team that used a first-round pick on an offensive lineman in New York. Second year in a row, they drafted a tackle, much like the Steelers did 1 year previous. So despite having what I will argue till the bitter end, much worse protection in New York, Rodgers still took significantly fewer sacks. And that's on him. That's a quarterback thing. Peyton Manning didn't take sacks. Rodgers isn't going to take sacks. So expect far fewer negatives this year than last. And that's really important. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. With baseball season in full swing, BetOnline has more ways to stay in the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. We keep the dog days of summer rolling with the latest selection of odds on everything, with updated odds on MLB, UFC, and boxing, to tennis and NFL futures. BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. I've referenced this a lot. I'm going to continue to reference it. Boy, and this passes a sniff test. All of you will know exactly where I'm going with this. Slow starts in games for the Steelers. Humongous problem. Again, I'm going to reference EPA. I've brought this up before, but I'm going down a different road with it. First quarter offensive EPA was 31st in the league, compared to 18th, 11th, 16th in the subsequent quarters. But even the defense was much worse. They were 22nd in EPA per play as opposed to 15th in the second, 6th in the third, 9th in the fourth. Now, this does not reflect well on the Steelers' prep throughout the week at all. But they do seem to be really good at halftime adjustments, get better as the game goes on. And it's real easy to focus on the offense here. Rightfully so. The slow starts on offense are hideous. And boy, the streaks of touchdownless first drives, really bad. But how about this number I dug up? First quarter points allowed in 2024. How many points did every team in the league give up in 2024 only in the first quarter of games? So the best teams in the league, over the entire regular season, the Packers only allowed 41 first quarter points. That's best. Chargers, 46. Ravens, 46 as well. Vikings, 47. Niners, 49. The Bengals, with one of the worst defenses you've ever seen, allowed only 62 first quarter points. Those were the best teams. Chiefs and Saints right behind them. There's a lot of wins between Packers, Chargers, Ravens, Vikings, Niners, Bengals, Saints not so much, Chiefs. Really good first quarter defenses and not allowing points. Well, who's the worst in the league? The Cowboys allowed 99 first quarter points. Carolina, awful defense, allowed 97. Titans, first pick in the draft, 93. Those are the worst. Except for the Steelers. Steelers allowed 112. Not only is that the worst, but it's 13 points more allowed in the first quarter of games than the second worst. Again, remember, Dallas, 99, Carolina, 97, Tennessee, 93. Steelers, 112 compared to 41 by the Packers. We can have different explanations for it, but in the end, I hope that the folks within those walls are analyzing their prep between games, prepping for the opponent. Slow starts, we all knew was a problem. Sitting on your couch, drinking an iron, eating pizza, boy, another slow start. But when you really look into the numbers on both sides of the ball, it's even worse.